This is Transqat. What is Transqat? Transqat is a safe space. It's a place for respectful conversations about transgender issues. It's a place for queer people to come tell their stories. I'm host Clare McCarthy. Welcome to Transqat. What you're about to hear is a recording of a vigil held at the state capitol in Hartford, Connecticut on February 28th. The event was an in memoriam for Nex Benedict. Nex was 16. They were non-binary. They were a member of the Choctaw Nation. They were a high school student in the Owasso public school system in Oklahoma. The vigil was organized by legislators and community groups. It was highlighted by poignant and articulate voices from queer youth around the state. Now, in this episode, you're going to hear grief and calls to action, hope, promises, a celebration of a life cut short, and you are going to hear anger because a child is dead, and that is worthy of outrage. I edited this episode not for content or language, but just for time. I removed most of the applause breaks. Connecticut is the home of Sandy Hook Elementary. And 7 years ago, 20 of our children were massacred by gun violence. Immediately, those interested in preserving the status quo, moneyed interests who finance political campaigns, rallied to prevent even the idea of any meaningful gun reform. And those efforts were followed by conspiracy mongers who tried to say the massacre never even happened. If dead kindergartners aren't enough to motivate change, I honestly don't know what is. Oklahoma, I've heard, is where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. Vested political interests, backed by money and clout, want that wind to blow away Nex's memory, to blow away the details of Nex's death if those facts shed a bad light on their ultra-conservative politics. May this episode and the voices therein stand against that ill wind.
Good evening, everybody. We're just about ready to get started. We are so lucky tonight that we have the governor here. For those of you who don't know, I'm Representative Sarah Kitt, and I want to thank all the parents and advocates and kids who are here today. Ace, if you want to come up and kick us off here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ace Ricker. I use he, him pronouns. I've been a public advocate and educator for the last 20 years as an openly multiracial trans man, and I'm here to uplift the unfortunate passing of Ness, with many people around us in support for those whose voices are not being heard. We are going to be starting off with a song.
No, your mom don't get it. No, your dad don't get it. Uncle John don't get it. And you can't tell Grandma 'cause her heart can't take it. She might not make it. They say don't dare, don't you even go there, cutting off your long hair. You do as you're told. Tell you wake up, go put on that makeup. This is just a phase you're gonna outgrow. There's something wrong in the village, in the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true, it's true. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. Something wrong with the village. Feel the rumors follow you from Monday all the way to Friday dinner. You got one day of shelter, then it's Sunday, hell to pay, you young lost sinner. Well, I've been there sitting in that same chair, whispering that same prayer 500,000 times. It's a lie, though, burying disciples. One page of the Bible isn't worth a life. There's something wrong in the village, in the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true. It's true. There's something wrong with the village. With the village. Something wrong with the village. Their name was Nex Benedict. They were a 16-year-old, non-binary, transgender, two-spirit young person from Oklahoma, and they were let down by their village. But today we are all here in honor of the memory of Nex Benedict and in support of non-binary and transgender young people across the state of Connecticut and around the country. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. Oh, they stare in the village, in the village. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's true, it's true. There's something wrong with the village, with the village. There's something wrong with the village. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leah. Thank you. My name is Leah. I am non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. I'm here on behalf of Equality Connecticut. For all of our media and press in attendance, we ask that if you are to capture photos and videos, that you do not capture the faces of the people in attendance here. We know that it's scary to be here sometimes, and there are folks with us in attendance who may not be out or open to their family and friends. And so we ask that if you are to take photos and videos, that you keep it centered on the speakers, signs, flags, candles, and things like that. And so I'm proud to introduce my friend and educator, Ace Ricker, who will be leading us in tonight's ceremony.
And that statement that Leah specifically said so well is that we are not only just honoring Nex, but making sure that we honor all those who haven't been heard or their names haven't been spoken. And all of the young individuals here today that are part of the non-binary and trans community and the rest of the LGBTQ plus community, you have family around you. You are not here alone, and you will not be alone. I started at the age of 14 being vocal because I didn't feel I had a family that valued me as an individual because I was different and seen different. And the individuals you're gonna hear today are wanting and yearning to support every single one of you here in Connecticut and around the United States and outside of the United States. I'm proud to introduce a very good friend of mine who I've known for 14 years and has been part of my family, Reverend Aaron Miller, pastor of MCC Hartford and chaplain for Yale Gender Program.
We gather together today as community to grieve the loss of Nex Benedict, a beautiful 16-year-old child, and to try and make sense of what is absolutely senseless, to draw strength from one another, and also to lift our heavy hearts. I wonder if you, like me, have two very strong feelings. One is very deep, deep sadness. Next was a bright light, a 16-year-old filled with possibility, and now that light has been tragically extinguished. We will never know the gifts they had, how the world would have been better with Nex in it, and we will never know what the lifetime of pain and suffering will be for that family. The second emotion I feel is righteous anger about this senseless loss of life at the violent hands of hate, ignorance, and intolerance against the 2S LGBTQ plus community, specifically Nex. By intolerance against the 2S community, specifically Nex, but that was done by 3 children too. Whatever happened that day in the bathroom happened with 3 children. What are we teaching our children? You may have noticed that the 2S was added to the LGBTQ plus. The 2S stands for Two-Spirit, because Nex's mother is a member of the Choctaw Nation. This violence did not happen in a vacuum. No, it happened in a bathroom. I grew up hearing the adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. how painful it is that this is absolutely not true. Words lead to action, and action can cause great harm. Words that appear in hundreds of laws created that discriminate against gender identity, that denies full participation in school and society. Words that deny us access to necessary and appropriate gender-affirming care. And words that encourage and even give permission to harm. Words that are legal, political, social, familial, and religious. The family noted that Nex's bullying started after Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill into law in May 2022 that banned bathroom access consistent with gender identity, citing safety concerns. The governor also banned the use of non-binary gender markers on IDs, restricted gender-affirming care for trans youth, and banned transgender girls from participating in girls' sports, citing concerns about fairness. Well, Governor Stitt, you were right, because the right to be concerned about safety actually and ironically started in your actions and were created by you in the legislation. That became a safety issue that ultimately cost the life of one young Nex Benedict. You have made educators, staff, and coaches the gender police when you criminalize trans and gender expansive children and students. The Owasso Public Schools is quoted saying, "Safety and security of our students is our top priority, and we are committed to fostering a safe and inclusive environment for everyone." End quote. Really? Inclusive? Safe? Words can do harm, sometimes great harm, because words can lead to death, murder, and suicide. Safe and inclusive, I implore the public schools in Oklahoma to make those words your own words into action so that all students may be protected and allowed to flourish. And Governor Stitt, I implore you to use these two words statewide, safe and inclusive, not just for some, but for all in your state. As transgender clergy, my heart is broken. Metropolitan Community Churches, where I am a pastor, here in Hartford, is guided and also led by two words, love and inclusion. And it is only with these two words, love and inclusion, there can ever be true safety and peace for our children and for us all. May it be so, and may we each do our part that this doesn't happen again.
Next, we will hear specifically from our governor, Ned Lamont.
Yeah, very different governor. That song really resonated with me in two senses. One, it started out by saying, I think it was my dad don't get it. And there's a lot we don't get, but we do understand that we want our kids to be who they are. We want them to be respected. We want them to be loved. And when I heard about that death, it was like a death in my own family. And I think that's how we should all feel. And I want all the kids to feel that you're all like our family and you have a right to be who you want to be. And we respect you and we love you for it. And the other words in the song was, there's something bad in the village. And I'm standing with a bunch of people behind me here, and each and every one of you. There's only something bad in the village if we let something be bad in the village. And we're not going to let that happen in Connecticut. That's not who we are. We're not going to stand for that. We're going to allow you to be exactly who you are. And we love you for who you are. And we stand for you. And it takes a little bit of compassion. It takes a little bit of empathy. Empathy means being able to walk in the shoes of someone you maybe don't totally understand, but you don't judge, you trust, and you love. I love that song. There's another song I love that I grew up with. It's called All You Need Is Love. It's sung by a group called the Beatles. You can ask your grandparents about them. All you need is love. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. We're not going to be that bad village. We're going to be Connecticut. We're going to stand for each and every one of you. We love you for who you are. God bless.
Thank you. At this point, I want to thank all the legislators, all my colleagues who came out here tonight in a show of support. But I'm going to ask that we all move into the audience and give this podium over to the community because it's their voices we came to hear.
Next, we are going to have Curtis Rodriguez Porter from the City of Hartford LGBTQ+ Commission Chair.
Good evening, everyone. I wish that we did not have to be here today for what we're all gathered. I've been working in education for over 10 years, and I've learned the value of representation, but also the value of the support and the space to be who you are and to be loved and to feel safe in any educational space. That's why it's so important that we continue to ensure that our policies and our laws protect our youth in school so that they can learn to just love and not learn to have a segregated situation, or so that whatever they feel and however they live their life has to be in hiding or that they have to be scared. I come to you today as well as a parent of 2 children, my husband and I ask that each and every one of you continue to spread love, not only amongst ourselves, but for our community, so that my children, your children, and all children can go to school to learn in a safe, free, and inclusive environment. I also understand and know the value and the passion and the volume when students and youth activate their voice. And I'm happy to be able to be a part of that. So next, I will be calling up students who will be coming to share their thoughts. Don't just hear them, please empathize with them, sympathize with them, and take in what they're saying, because it's so, so important, because we cannot allow this to continue. The first student that I'm calling up is Jamie Cooney Appleby, senior at Lyman Hall Public High School.
Hello, my name is Jamie Cooney Appleby. I'm a trans woman. When I had first read about Nex's death, I felt a lot of things. I felt sad, I felt angry, and I felt disappointed. But the one emotion I did not feel was shock. I have become numb to the senseless violence and cruelty that my transgender siblings and I face. I and many others have wrongly accepted this cruelty as a fact of life, but it shouldn't be. And we, as a collective, have the power to change this crude mindset. Nex was an artist. They were interested in culinary arts, and they loved spending time with their cat, Zeus. Nex was 16, and they deserved better. Hatred is a taught and learned language. The attempts to demonize us and deny us necessities such as healthcare and bathroom usage are attempts to rationalize the inhumane treatment of people just trying to live a normal life. Owasso High School did not report this incident to police, nor did they call an ambulance for Nex, despite it being district policy. Maybe Nex would still be here if they had been seen right away. Nex deserved love, they deserved kindness, and they deserve to experience the joys of adulthood. Being transgender should not be a means to an end, a journey to appear cis. Being transgender should be about living as your best and truest self. I personally love my transgender identity, and I wouldn't press a button to magically transform into a cis person, a concept all too familiar to every transgender person out there. So why should we have to research where it is safe to travel? Why should my best friends avoid correcting the teacher about their preferred name and pronouns? It's wrong. And I want to live in a world where we may exist in peace, but this won't happen without action. We all feel the sorrow that comes with this tragedy, but we also feel so helpless to contribute meaningfully. I know I do. And that's why I'm standing here right now. It's impossible to prevent Nex's death, but by actively supporting our right to pursue happiness and love, we can prevent the next young transgender person from an early death at the hands of individuals filled with preconceived notions of justice, notions that are founded on a history based in hatred and cruelty for one another, notions that hold no power over the inherent human nature to love and accept each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call up Graham, a 15-year-old from the state of Connecticut.
As a trans and non-binary 15-year-old with many trans and non-binary friends, It is terrifying and devastating to hear about things like this happening and to know that not only are adults not doing anything about it, but that they don't care enough to even try. They don't care that children are being beaten to death. It should never have to be the job of the victims to ask for support on something like this. People should be able to tell, people should be able to recognize when enough is enough. It is insane to me that despite the ever-growing number of senseless acts of violence on queer people, our society is still unable to recognize how much we're struggling, and because of that, how hard people are fighting. I'm aware that most people won't find much validity or importance in the words of some 15-year-olds, but in my opinion, the best people to speak on a subject are the ones most affected by it. And given that Nex isn't with us to speak for themselves, I think that it's right for other queer young people's voices to be raised up and listened to. If the people in our society don't listen to LGBTQ+ youth, then nothing will get better. Even in the likely event that queer kids are the ones to make the big changes in the world, if people don't even try to understand or educate themselves, then those people will continue to be the reason why Nex was not the first, and I'm sure will not be the last victim of an act of senseless hate and ignorance. If this path that we're on right now does not stop soon, our society will become numb to the violence and injustice. This needs to stop now, or else it will never stop. If people don't recognize soon how wrong this is, then it will become normalized even more than it already is. Killing children for being themselves will become normalized. And may I remind you just how different this situation would be if it were cisgender and straight kids being murdered. People would not ignore them being killed for no reason. For some reason, queer lives are given less validity by society, and that is, in my opinion, the main reason for things like this. Thank you.
Next, Ronan Hernsdorf Smith.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to honor Nex Benedict. Transphobic violence has taken another young, radiant soul, another transgender youth who will never get to grow up. Nex should have gotten to experience freedom and euphoria, explore their passions in life like drawing, spend more time with their loved ones, like their cat who they love dearly. My name is Ronan. My pronouns are he, they. I'm an artist and animal lover like Nex. I'm 19 years old and I'm the youth coordinator for Trans Haven at Peer Pride, a community organization in Connecticut run by and for trans people. When I was 17 and a senior at a Connecticut school, I experienced harassment and threats and violence for simply trying to use the men's room. I had heard the horror stories, but thought that I would be okay. After I left the bathroom, I received a text to not come back to the men's room. I was told that a group of people would attack me if they saw me there again, going into detail about what they would do. I was shocked and went to my assistant principal for help. He said, "They are nice boys. They wouldn't actually hurt you. And I should come back if anything else happens." My guidance counselor tried to lie to me and say that there is no violence in our schools, when we knew fights were happening and I had witnessed one on the first day. My administration failed me. It took intervention by lots of people for them to even open up a couple of gender-neutral bathrooms. I later saw transphobic and homophobic graffiti around the school, including, "Ronan isn't allowed here," in the men's room. I heard people agreeing with the aggressors and saw posts about myself on social media. I had to live in fear every single day my senior year, and as hard as I tried to stand up for myself, there was no real change. I even went to the school board meeting and asked for help, and all people did was call me brave, which I have learned you will hear a lot when you're transgender. Because I was careful, mostly by avoiding using the bathroom entirely, my harassers didn't get to act on their threats. My administration's reaction is in line with the extreme negligence and misconduct from Nex's school. I was penalized for speaking out, just like Nex got suspended for being attacked. People don't realize that this is all too common. The reason I bring up my experiences is to drive home the fact that yes, things like this do happen near you and to people that you know, and it needs to come to an end. Connecticut calls itself a safe haven for trans people. Many transgender people and their families are fleeing their homes in other states to come here in hopes of a better life. We hear from them at Trans Haven all of the time. But yet, transphobic violence and harassment is still very present in schools and workplaces. We need to make Connecticut live up to its promise of being safe. We need to protect trans kids, especially Black, brown, and Indigenous trans kids who face systemic and interpersonal racism on top of transphobia. As much as I tried to stand up for myself, I still had very little power because people didn't listen. People only tend to listen when you have a cis person speak for you. Trans youth deserve to be fought for and not the only ones fighting for themselves. Trans kids deserve to live. Trans kids deserve to grow up, to grow old, and live long, happy lives free from fear. Why is it that almost every trans youth I talk to tells me how they never thought they would live to be 18 years old? I know I didn't. How are we expected to just continue to live our lives like normal while these atrocities are happening? Nex deserve to live a long and happy life, not have that stripped away because the adults in their life tossed them aside. This is not complicated. Nex couldn't afford to wait, and neither can we. Nex and countless other trans kids should be here today, and it is all of our responsibilities to fight for and protect them. Most importantly, we need to remember that we are not alone. Trans community is power, so please seek support from each other, because we are the strongest when we have each other. May Nex rest in peace. Thank you.
I would next like to call up Elisa from New Haven.
Hi everybody, my name's Elisa, and I use she, her pronouns. Nex Benedict's death was not an isolated tragedy. It was the result of processes that have been long in the making. The Republican Party has waged a crusade against trans people, and they have whipped up a culture war with deadly effects. They have tried to demonize transgender people, to divide this country, to repress trans rights, and to paint transgender people as a threat. And this is what has spawned the hateful and monstrous ideology and the hateful beliefs that motivated people to harass, attack, and ultimately kill Nex Benedict. State legislators and school boards, as we've seen in the recent week, are in the hands of reactionary right-wing Republicans like Ryan Walters and Tom Woods, who see the deadly consequences of their words, but choose to double down. Their intention is to create a poisonous atmosphere of hate against trans people. And they win elections by scoring cheap political points at our expense, and by demonizing minorities to distract us from the problems that affect us all and the things that unite us. Divide and conquer is their favorite tool, and they have done it in the Jim Crow era, they've done it with abortion rights, they've done it with gay rights, and now they've chosen to do it with trans rights. And meanwhile, our elected representatives, our president and the Democratic Party pay lip service to us without doing anything concrete to protect trans youth. They sit on their hands and they watch as a small, organized minority wages war against us. And we can call our representatives and urge them to do something, but I suspect they already know what the problem is. I think the fact is that they only pretend to care about us when it's politically useful, but they'd rather employ empty gestures than taking real action. Under Biden, more anti-trans laws have been passed than ever before, and he's done very little to intervene in what's been happening. Rather than waging a real struggle to protect trans rights and to protect trans youth like Nex Benedict, they let the threat grow because they know that they can use it to win votes from us down the line. And these are both parties of the ruling class, and I'm sick of them playing good cop and bad cop with people that are seriously suffering and dying from right-wing hate. And in the face of all this hatred and this complete inaction on behalf of the Democrats, I want to remember Nex and honor their legacy. And I think that honoring their legacy means taking action and doing everything we can to ensure that not one more young person has to die for being trans. But the question is, how do we do that? And the fact is that we need radical solutions, because otherwise we're going to see this happen time and time again. Although transphobia is on the rise, the majority of this country is against discrimination and is against anti-trans laws. And we need to unite all these people, unite the working class, who feel powerless to protect young people like Nex, like I'm sure that we all do here today. To do that, we need to look back to the legacy of those who came before us. We need to draw on our history, and I would say look back to the legacy of the Stonewall Uprising. Now, the Stonewall Uprising saw black, trans women, some of the most oppressed people in society, lead hundreds and thousands of people from all across society in a mass movement. And their strength was in their numbers, was in the fact that they called everyone to unite behind the common cause against oppression and against bigotry. And one spark gave breath to the building fury of all these people and brought them together into action. To protect trans kids like Nex, we need an organized mass movement just like that. And that's how we can fight transphobia and oppression, if we all fight together to change it. The same politicians pushing division and persecuting trans kids are the same ones who sent out the cops to beat Black Lives Matter protesters, and the same ones who attacked the homeless, and the same ones who block minimum wage hikes and who restrict healthcare and abortion rights, and the same ones who keep migrants out, And ultimately, they're the same people bankrolling Israel's genocide in Gaza. The fight against transphobia, against oppression, is one fight. And we must all unite to fight it together across society. The working classes of all genders, sexualities, races, and creeds shares one common enemy. And together, uniting that class, we can ensure that what's happened now to Nex Benedict never has to happen again to anyone else. And while the far right is getting organized, training themselves, and mobilizing, we now need to build organizations that do the same and that fight with class struggle to put an end to these things and to stop trans oppression and fight these anti-trans laws that are pushing this hatred. And so only united can we raise the call and say that an injury to one is an injury to all. And only united and organized together can we protect trans rights with class struggle. Thank you.
Next, I call Grayson from New Haven.
I would like to start by sending my love and support to Nex Benedict's family. To lose a child so young is unimaginable to anyone, and they are talking about Nex's story while they're still grieving and trying to get protection for people like me. And I just thank them a lot because this is unimaginable. There are a lot of resources out there to talk about how much of a wonderful person Nex Benedict was, so I highly suggest you go and look at that because they deserve to have their names said and they deserve to know what and who they were. My name is Grayson Montmorin. I graduated high school last year. I'm studying political science at Southern Connecticut State University. I am a son. I am a grandson. I am an older brother. I am a cousin. I'm a best friend. But most importantly, I am a proud transgender male. Today is not about me though, and it's not about my story. However, I felt it was necessary to talk about who I was for a second, because when people hear the word transgender, that's all they can hear in this country right now. They forget that I am a person outside of that I have multiple faces to myself. I have multiple dimensions that are just as important. Several LGBTQIA2S+ organizations have released pamphlets on how transgender students can stay safe in schools, and how we could stay safe in an environment that was made to be a safe space for all. Death is something the trans community is well rehearsed in. We have a lot of experience in it, unfortunately, with more than 335 trans and gender nonconforming people that have lost their lives to fatal violence since 2013. And a 2022 study showed that transgender teens were 5 times more likely to commit suicide. And I was almost a part of that high statistic. Instead of showing students love and support, we are doing the opposite by restricting their ability to use a bathroom that matches their gender identity, forcing them to use their dead names, and forcibly outing them, even if they are in an unsafe home life. Youth is the future of this country, yet we are not helping them by forcing them to conform to identities that are not their own. We should be protecting them and giving them access to safe spaces to grow up and be their best and truly authentic selves. But we are not. I beg you, pay attention. Contact your representatives. Share the stories of those that lost their lives and of those that are still living. Teach yourselves about the statistics. Teach yourselves about my community. Now is not the time to be ignorant. Now is not the time to be stagnant. Please, I don't want our futures to disappear, and I don't want any other trans students to lose their lives because of these destructive laws and policies that only serve to hurt students and break their spirit. Thank you.
All right, next, Madison.
Well, yes, I'm very shy, but I am very proud to say I am bisexual. And I am not scared to say I'm bisexual. I am not scared to say that I am part of the LGBTQ community. I am very happy and glad to say I have a loving family who loves me and who loves me for who I am and who appreciates me for who I am as just a human being. And that's the way everybody should be. That's the way families should be in general. But why should we have to be scared to come out to our families? Why should we have to be scared to tell anybody who we actually really are? Just love wins, and just LGBTQ, keep pushing and keep doing what y'all gotta do. Keep your heads up and just be yourself. Thank you.
Next, I ask that James Crocker, he/him Executive Director of Granby's Got Pride High School Junior.
Hello, my name is James Crocker. I'm 16 years old, and I'm here today because Nex Benedict is not. Because they weren't even safe in their own school. Nex Benedict was just like me, just like many of us here today. They were a 16-year-old non-binary kid from Oklahoma, full of dreams, aspirations, and the simple desire to live and love authentically. But Nex's journey was cut short in a cruel and senseless act of violence, a hate crime, perpetrated right within the walls of their own school, a place where students are supposed to be safe, where students shouldn't fear for their lives. Imagine, for a moment, the terror Nex must have felt in their final moments. Imagine the pain, the confusion, the sheer injustice of it all. Now imagine the grief of their loved ones, their friends, their community. Is a grief that reverberates far beyond the borders of Oklahoma. It echoes in the hearts of every 2S LGBTQIA+ person across this nation, including my own. Nex's story is a tragic reminder of the harsh reality faced by LGBTQ+ youth in our society, a reality that no young person should ever have to endure. But the sad truth is that hate thrives in the shadows of ignorance and intolerance, and it is claiming far too many lives. That is why I'm here today, to demand change, to demand action, to demand justice for Nex and for every LGBTQ+ person who has been a victim of hate. We cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the systemic justices that perpetuate these atrocities. We cannot continue to allow our schools to be breeding grounds for hatred and intolerance. It is time for us to take a stand, to stand up against bigotry, to stand up against discrimination, to stand up for the basic human rights of every individual, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And it starts right here, right now, in this very room. We must enact and enforce comprehensive protections for LGBTQ+ students in our schools. We must provide education and training to teachers and staff to recognize and address instances of bullying and harassment. We must foster a culture of acceptance and inclusion where every student feels safe, supported, and valued for who they are. Nex Benedict should be here with us today, but their light was extinguished far too soon. Let their memory serve as a catalyst for change in the fight for equality and justice. Let us honor their legacy by ensuring that no other young person has to suffer the same fate. Thank you.
May I please call June Carpenter, she/her, junior at the CREC, Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts.
Good evening. Before I share my art, I would like to congratulate and thank someone. My mom. She's done amazing things to make the lives of students better and still does. So, thank you. This evening, I'm reciting a poem I wrote titled Tonight, Seen and Heard. A week filled with grief, anger, and fear. I move through hallways, routine spaces in a daze, seeing Nex in hallways, in classrooms, and bathrooms. This is when that body buzz is the most intense, when a reel plays in a loop in my head and acts so savage in its brutality that I question humanity, and acts so evil that I question its truth, because to believe it is real hurts too much. Why is the hate easier to see? Why is the hate easier to feel? Why can't we just be let be? Do you see Nex moving through this crowd? They are happy. They are free. We want freedom. We want to just be. Leave us alone, I yell in my head, over and over until I collapse into bed. Tonight, Nex is heard. Tonight, Nex is seen. Tonight, we are seen. Tonight, we are heard. Tonight, for Nex, as you move through this crowd, Be happy. Be free. Thank you.
Next, I will bring back Ace.
Now we are going to have Norman LeBron from Outreach Management for Q+.
Good evening, everybody. A little while ago, when the news about Nex started pouring in, our executive director, Mel, put out feelers and was basically asking people on our staff what changes they would like to see. And as things started pouring into the Slack channel one by one, we started to get a clear picture of exactly what kind of change we wanted to see. So the following is a statement put forth by the employees, the board, and the membership of Q+. The best way the state of Connecticut can support young queer people in the wake of the Nex Benedict news is to do what queer youth have been asking the state to do for years. Protect them, honor them, respect them, recognize them, and above all, listen to what they have to say. Number one, we want the state to solidify legal protections for trans and queer youth. The state guidance on transgender students must be corrected, and the new religious exemption within it must be removed. The state anti-bullying laws must be updated to no longer refuse to investigate anonymous reports and no longer require that every non-anonymous report made ends up in a phone call home that outs a bullied student to their family. Restorative justice and conflict resolution practices must not re-traumatize bullied students or force them to educate their harassers or their educators. Number two, we want the state to meet the demand for accountability. School reports on harassment and bullying cases must be verified and evaluated by a third party that can make appropriate recommendations that are tailored to each school's needs. Clear, immediate, and consistent repercussions must be applied when students or staff harass or disrespect queer students based on their queer identities. Number three, we need schools to center queer and especially trans youth in the school environment. Schools must celebrate queer identities all year round and not only acknowledge us in relation to harassment or a hate crime. Student experiences like proms, graduations, clubs, and sports teams must include space for transgender and non-binary identities. Moreover, health and sexual education classes must include information relevant to trans bodies and queer identities without pathologizing us, and that information must be made accessible to all students. Number four, we want better resources for all students. Trainings on intersectional allyship and conflict resolution must be built into the annual curriculum. Social workers and guidance counselors must replace school resource officers to shift the school climates from punitive to supportive. Number five, we want the state to provide also better resources for all adults who work with youth. No teacher, no counselor, no nurse, or no other student support person should be without a clear basic understanding of what queer youth deal with and what their needs are. Competency trainings should not only be mandatory, but also be administered by local queer professionals who work with local youth directly. Number six is we want Connecticut to take a public stand. Just like someone said earlier, this state claims to be a safe haven for trans people. We want the state of Connecticut to take a step up, and our state leadership should urge other states to pass more protection, work to prevent and ban conversion therapy, and work to ban the trans panic defense at the federal level. School leadership must make clear public statements specifying how will they protect queer and transgender students in their spaces. Local community organizers and student leaders have been demanding these changes for years, and still, young lives continue to be at stake. State support is long past overdue. Thank you, and rest in power, Nex.
The next individual I'd like to bring up to the podium is Kimora Harrington, founder and visionary of Kimora's Cultural Corner.
So, hello, beautiful humans, and you all knew that that was how it was going to start. Hello, beautiful humans. Right now, catch your humanity. Hello, beautiful humans. I'm tired of this shit. They kill our babies because they're easy, and they know that we come together in pain. And they know that we come together and say, this can't happen again. Yet we continue to allow them to create the conditions where this is going to happen again. Know that this shit, we've been waiting for this shit. We knew this was gonna happen. Deal with my fucking mouth. We've been waiting for this shit. Back in April, I got a phone call out of the middle of nowhere from Terry Fleming. Terry Fleming is the last and only prescribing doctor in Oklahoma. And she was taking care of our babies. And the law shit happened. And she knew that she was going to have to, first off, tell families in Oklahoma who had finally gotten to a place of loving and accepting and caring for their children, that she was going to have to detransition their children. And if she didn't detransition their children, then they were going to lose their children to the fucking state. I'm here in Connecticut. Do you know what that feels like? Do you know what that's like to have someone from Oklahoma call and tell you that this is what's going to happen? I can't do shit but be a fucking witness. That's our job, to be witnesses and to talk about it when it happens, so that when reasonable assholes talk about legislation that they think isn't going to make a difference, it's our job to ask why and what do they think is going to happen. When she joined my world in April, we talked about Nex. We didn't know that we were talking about fucking Nex. We had no clue which baby we were talking about. But we knew, as a black person in this country who was reduced to 3/5 of a human being and was therefore less than human, so therefore people could take our lives in the ways that they wanted to, that with the legislation that was coming out of Oklahoma, while good, liberal, progressive, whatever words you want to use for people, were willing to step into reasonable conversations, we were discussing what was going to happen in the bathrooms at the fucking high schools. What happened in the bathroom at the high school? Don't be surprised. Don't act like this is surprising. This was prescribed and this happened. Have you ever heard of the John Birch Society? Have you ever heard of the KKK? Guess what? The nice, reasonable people write legislation, and the ignorant people carry out the death sentences. What happened in Oklahoma? The good, reasonable people wrote the death sentence. We sat back and debated that shit like it was something to fucking debate. Deal with my fucking words. News people, fucking deal with me. Edit that shit the way you fucking need to edit it. But know that this is true. And if we can stand up and reasonably talk about children, about babies, about 15-year-olds, because I'm sorry, a 15-year-old child who had just had a birthday in January, in February they're still a 15-year-old, and I'm gonna stand here in a place of that's a baby. That child gave their life for our fucking movement. We are here to stand with each other. I'm looking around, you know where my strength is coming from? The eyes of the people who I love here. The eyes of the people who I stand for. The eyes of the people who I have responsibility for. And I can tell you that as I've been standing with Terry and understanding, I can't make her life any better. I can't do anything. She has had to transition hundreds of fucking children in Oklahoma. And she has had to sit with hundreds of families who have to deal with this crap. And the sad thing is, I continue to show up in places where people look at me with crazy-ass sad eyes saying, who would have known this was happening? Well, you know what? If you make it clear that there's a group of people who are less than human, you know what you can do to them? Whatever the fuck you want. You can murder them, and that is what happened. So right now, I am so happy that the legal people were here. Y'all talk about SB, whatever it is, do all of that. Create all the legislation, knock yourselves out. But everyone who's up in here, go find someone who does not look like you and talk to them. I don't know what town you live in, but what does your Board of Ed do to protect trans kids? Go fucking find out. Do not sit in reasonable conversations. Reasonable conversations kill trans children. Reasonable conversations create spaces where we can understand that some people hate us so fucking much that we need to sit quietly and allow them and their books and their gods to denigrate us and murder us. So let me share with you my job. If you look at me, I'm a dyke, but I'm not trans, and I'm not gender variant. And while I enjoy being invited to speak for people who are not me, yesterday, I knew I was going to be here tonight. I got the phone call from Terry, and the phone call was, Kimora, I've got to, because the middle of the country fucking sucks, y'all, okay? So she has to drive today. Right now, she's in a car. She had to drive from Oklahoma to Kansas because no one out there cares about the trans babies. Look around you right now and please feel your privilege. Please feel the privilege. You've got these people around you. You have privilege. The chick who's in Oklahoma who is taking care of our children does not have this at all.
The next individual is Dominique Johnson, who is our state representative for the 143rd District of Norwalk and Westport as an LGBTQ plus advocate.
I want to thank the community of which I'm so proud to be a part, my trans and non-binary siblings. I'm a proud genderqueer and gender nonconforming legislature in this building, the People's House. And to you, the youth, I was once you. I'm clearly no longer an LGBTQ youth, but I was once you. And I want to talk a little bit tonight about what that means over the generations, because here you give me hope, you give me strength. In light of the fact that we lost this young person in Oklahoma, and I want to send my love to Nex's family, to the queer and trans communities in Oklahoma, standing in solidarity with you. But Nex's freedom should not be the price. This price should not be the price for freedom. Nex was free in ways that my generation couldn't yet quite be free, but Nex's price is too heavy a burden. Violence, victimization should not be the price of freedom for our young people. And I was just talking with one of my colleagues here in this building from my generation, and we remember so vividly when we were your age and Matthew Shepard was murdered, and that was a moment for us. And right now, Nex, 20-some years later, is a moment for you. And I want you to know we are here for you. And I was lucky because I had some people that were there for me, some of whom were even at Stonewall. And so we're making history. You are making history. Whether you realize it or not, you are making history by being you, by loving each other, and by being here tonight. And that history is going to be something that you don't quite even maybe understand until 5-10 years later, and you are right now creating ripples, moments that will impact people's lives and will give people hope and will show love in the world. And I want to share something that's not my words, but it was something someone at one of these events gave to me after I spoke. It had a lot to do with the Dobbs decision, but as we know, the people that are attacking our children and attacking our families, they're all singing from the same hymnal. So I want to share something with you tonight that gets really to the heart of what I'm trying to say about how we need to stay together across the generations. I'm really interested in what it was like back when you lived. It seems like people were afraid a lot, maybe every day. It's hard to imagine, but it seems that way from the writing that you've left me to remember that no one knew that things would get better when you were there, when you were living. And that even people who were working to make it happen had to live with oppression every day. I read your writing and the writing of your other comrades from that time, and I feel grateful. It seems like maybe you knew about us. It seems like you loved us already. And we love you. And I want you to know that. You are loved, you are valued, and you have a unique gift to the world. And Nex was deprived of the gift, and so the gift and the light in Nex's eyes is something we carry with us in our hearts here in Connecticut. And that love that we have, that is from a deep well in our queer and trans and non-binary communities. And it's in our soul. And that's something very special about our community. And I want you to know that. That is in you. That light is in you. We tap into it in times like this. We tap into the love of our chosen family. And that's what's so special about being queer and trans and non-binary is often we're forced to choose our own family, but that's a gift. Many times we can choose it, and we have families of origin that love us. But that love will always be with you. And I have hope because of you. You are my hope. You are the ones that I see when I close my eyes on the days in this building where anti-LGBTQ speech is spoken, where anti-LGBTQ bills are raised but will never see the light of day. I close my eyes and I see your faces because you are my why. And so this moment gives us a lot of fear, a lot of pain, but I want us also to remember And in the words of Audre Lorde, when I dare to be powerful to use my strength in the service of my vision, it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid, and that is because of the love that we know we have in each other to lift us up. And so I return to this building knowing that I'm not going to be the last, knowing at one point I will live to see a non-binary legislator, I will live to see a trans legislator in this building, and it may be one of you. And we are here for you. Whenever that journey starts, we are here for you. And we will use this vision in service. Whether or not we are afraid, we will use that. And so let's return to this place. And I was talking with Leah about this. Let's return to this place when we are not grieving, when our hearts aren't heavy and broken, when we're not here to protest a bill, when we're not here because there's a press conference talking about bills that are meant to oppress us and erase us from existence. Let's return to this place to celebrate queer and trans and non-binary joy. Let's celebrate ourselves. Let's celebrate how resilient and persistent we have to be, even though we shouldn't have to be. Let's celebrate the love we have that comes from our community. Like tonight, let's celebrate queer and trans joy in this building, because this is the people's house, and that means you, especially to all the queer and trans youth here. Don't let anybody ever tell you this is not your house. This is your house, and its doors will always be open to you, and we will welcome you in with open arms. Just know that we love you, and rest in power and rest in peace. Next.
I want to bring Leah Juliet back to the podium.
As a queer, non-binary person who grew up in Wolcott, Connecticut in 2011 and was the only openly gay kid at my public high school, I never would have imagined that a decade later I would be given the opportunity to speak before all of you today, and I wish so sincerely that it wasn't in this moment of communal pain that we're experiencing, but I want you to know that I stand with you, I hear you, we all hear you, our entire planning committee, everyone who put this event together hears you and understands you and sees you and loves you and values you. You deserve to be here, and the world would be nothing if you did not exist.
I welcome to the podium a dear friend, someone who will center us and has always been someone that makes me smile, Tony Furiolo.
What you're feeling in this room right now is the energy of love. What you're feeling in this room is the energy of kindness. This is what the world needs. This is what our kids need. I've been working with trans and non-binary kids for 21 years, and I'm telling you, the only thing they need is to be heard and to be believed. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Arne Garberg, who was a Norwegian writer, and he wrote, "To love someone is to learn the song within their heart and sing it back to them when they have forgotten it." We have a lot of singing to do. This community is suffering right now. All right, so let's be kind to each other, walk out of here, and know that you have community. And that brings me joy. I just ran into a young being that I've known since they were 12, and now they're 19, and I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. I haven't seen them for years, and they brought me joy. Because they have a smile on their face. Why? Because they were allowed to be who they knew they were. All right, so I wish all of you love and peace. Thank you.
And now to close tonight, Reverend Aaron Miller.
So at the end of our gathering, especially in tribute and in vigil, as we have honored Nex, this has been a heavy night. When we close a vigil or we close a gathering like this, I think it's very important to end with a prayer. And so I'd like to offer a prayer from the Choctaw Nation, because that is Nex's family and their belonging. And so I would like to offer that now. O great Spirit Father, who sits on high beyond the heavens, creator of all life below, please hear my spiritual prayer. For I seek guidance in a world where few can lay claim to eternal peace. Grant me the vision to see beyond tomorrow's horizon, yet still accept my daily trials that must and will be faced to survive. Give me the strength to rise each day and breathe the breath of life that you have provided for me. Touch my spiritual soul so that I may use every moment to spread your sacred message of love and peace for all mankind. I ask only the privilege to speak my native tongue and learn the ways of my people from generations of old. Help me to understand and accept that we are one body, as each spirit flows from one to another in a sacred hoop. Let the trails that bore my ancestors' blood and tears and the chains that bound the freedom serve as reminders to all of our hate and savagery against one another, and ensure its trust that we as a people choose never to repeat such ignorance. Grant Mother Earth the strength to endure all injustices that have been placed upon her, and cleanse her red clay body to renew her strength for new generations to thrive. Embrace my mind and grant me the wisdom to seek and receive my ancestral birthright. Guide my feet down the passage of forgiveness of those who have severed my tribal ties and helped me to bind them to them once more. Teach this child, O Great One, the true lesson of life, its sacred message of love to spread freely beyond self and among my brothers and sisters throughout the duration of my earthly existence. May your morning sun awaken this weary body, and your night moon allow it to meditate and rest. May your spirit continue to heal and instill within me the meaning of this spiritual prayer, and trust that I will use it to serve you well. And now, as a general prayer, I ask, O God, who is known by many names, many expressions, many genders, many sexualities, who is not confined into a box and doesn't wish that for us either. We ask now that you lift the spirits of those gathered here, the family that mourns Nex, and all those kids and families that have suffered the violence of this world. And God, we ask that you continue to give us strength for one another, and give us love enough to share with each of us and all of us, just as you give us always. And so, God, we ask that you heal our hurt, lift our pain, and then call us to make changes in this world that will save more lives and allow all of us to flourish. And we pray this in your many rainbow names. Amen.
In the wake of tragedy, community can be a blessing. I'm grateful I was at the State House for this event. I am grateful that I could share my sadness and my anger with others. Thanks again to all the individuals and organizations who helped put this vigil together. Next up on Transqat is our 50th episode. 50 episodes feels like a landmark to me. I'm really proud of this show, and I wanted something special to mark the occasion. Next episode, then, is a conversation with Kyone Wolfe. Now, if you're from Connecticut, you know Kyone. She used to work on the Colin McEnroe Show, and for the last few years, she's been the host of Audacious with Kyone Wolfe, which airs Saturday mornings on Connecticut Public Radio. Kyone has won 2 Gracie Awards for her work on Audacious, and she was named a Champion of Pride in 2021 by The Advocate. I recommend going to her archive and listening to a few episodes before coming back for our conversation. We talk a lot about how she approached several of these shows. I recommend going to the archive of Audacious and listening to a few episodes before you come back for our conversation, because we reference a number of them as we go through. This was quite possibly the best conversation I've had in 50 episodes, and that's saying something. This has been Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. Thank you so much for listening. Let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece.
And you've just been listening to Transqat. It is made by one of my favorite people in the world, Clare McCarthy.
Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC.
Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.
Join us on the web at transqat.com.
That's TRANSQAT.com.
QAT.com.
QAT.com.
There you'll find links to Transqat, the blog,
writing projects,
speaking engagements,
and our PayPal donations page.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monkeys.
Monies.
Your monies.
Your monies.
Not monkeys.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monies. Any monkeys will be gratefully received as well.
Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
On TikTok, we are at The Real Transqat.
Want to tell your story on air?
Or ask Claire a question?
What is the deal?
She has all the answers.
Or suggest a guest or topic for an upcoming episode.
Use the contact page at the website
or email her directly at crmtransqat@gmail.com.
crmtransqat@gmail.com.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.